And with that, I would like to actually, now that we have solved our technical issues, invite the first Deputy Director of the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, Kateryna Ryabiko, to resume her keynote, because I think it'll go very well alongside with what Mykola Kuleba has just said. Kateryna, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, and many thanks to your patient and the patient of all of the participants as the technical problems were being resolved. It's very difficult to follow the speech, the passionate speech of Mykola Kuleba. But I will like to also pick up on some of the points that he was making in his remarks, as I think that our office also has been consistently noting that women and children in Ukraine are the target group for trafficking networks, and this was already evident even prior to the military attack of the Russian Federation. In all of the crimes that are being conducted currently in Ukraine, in addition to the crimes that are being conducted now in Ukraine. And here, coming to the topic of our discussion, the demand that's created by buyers and their high value in the sex industry made it the situation and the vulnerabilities around the situation very attractive soil for human traffickers. And Mykola, in his remarks, mentioned millions of refugees, and indeed, with the flow of over than 5 million refugees from Ukraine in the past of just 2 months, and mainly women and children, the risks of trafficking in human beings have been significantly going up. And the main targets of trafficking are women and children, because we know that this is a gendered crime, and they constitute the majority of Ukrainian refugees, creating a very dramatic intersection of these risk factors, of various risk factors, putting it all together. And to prevent this hideous crime from flourishing, efforts need to be stepped up at the policy level, at the legislation level, at the practical manner to address the demand side of this crime. And this is true especially in Germany, as Germany is one of the major destination countries for sex traffickers for Ukrainian women. And children, speaking of children also need particular attention when it comes to anti-trafficking measures. Just 2 years ago, in 2020, about 1/3 of the overall detected victims of human trafficking were children. And because of their age and lack of life experience, lack of maturity, they are usually more vulnerable to trafficking than the adults. And those in state institutional care, orphanages, and care houses, unaccompanied and separated children, they're at the highest risk. And it's our responsibility to put light as much as possible to the issue and the anti-trafficking measures, to step up the anti-trafficking measures as related to the trafficking of children. I'd like to also, I spoke a little bit about 2020, and it was that year when there was a global report on trafficking in persons issued that stated that 50% of detected victims of human trafficking were trafficked for sexual exploitation. And here I need to mention the use of internet for human trafficking that increased and varied. And there is a great evidence of the growth of child sexual exploitation, including child sexual abuse material. And traffickers are simultaneously able to target, recruit, exploit individuals in vulnerable situations, to traffic them for the purpose of sexual exploitation, and gain access to an increased pool of customers, and particularly sex buyers, through the internet. And here I'd like to note the situation that many Ukrainian children are still having online classes, trying to get in contact with their closed ones through the internet, which renders even more vulnerabilities of being exploited. And we need to pay attention to these factors in this current context. Talking about the states, international organizations, and civil society, we all must intensify our collaborative efforts to eliminate trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of women and girls worldwide as forms of gender-based violence and manifestations of gender inequality, as well as the abuse of children. And governments and civil society in Ukraine and the neighboring countries to Ukraine in Germany have been working to safeguard refugees, but there is still lack of coordination at the border crossings that we are observing, at transportation hubs and the reception facilities. And here, I'd like to mention the importance of national referral mechanisms that are essential to prevent and combat the trafficking of individuals, and especially women and children. There is a hope of our office that the national referral mechanisms will be strengthened, will be bolstered in order for victims to be identified and protected. And these mechanisms should be gender sensitive, trauma informed, and survivor and victim centered. And these are the approaches that our office has been following really with great care and great attention. I would like to stop here as I would like to thank the German Alliance Together Against Human Trafficking and the Konrad-adenauer Foundation for their commitment to this topic and for organizing these conferences and for finding creative approaches together with our office to combating human trafficking and discussing openly the strategies in the countries of destination. And one final note, which I'd like to mention and also recognize Tatiana for her efforts of putting together the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council, an important body that have provided their life experiences, expertise to this conference and also to the events that I mentioned in the beginning, in the first intervention which I had today. And these voices, the voices of the survivors, are the most important voices in guaranteeing a human rights-based, victim, survivor-centered approach in combating human trafficking and in educating all of us and educating anti-trafficking stakeholders, the community, and the general public on how this hideous crime can be better prevented and how to heal the trauma. Coming back to the speech of Mr. Kuleba, he mentioned that we are talking about the generations of children, of children and women in Ukraine that are affected now by the armed conflict in Ukraine. And it is our responsibility these days to ensure that we start addressing the issues related to this trauma and to do as much prevention work as possible as we move forward in our discussion. I would like again to thank all of you for your patience with my technical issues, and I would like to wish all of us successful discussions, and I really do hope that we will have opportunities to continue these discussions and to also come to very specific creative solutions that would help all of us to step up the coordinated efforts in preventing these crimes. Thank you, Tatiana, and back to you.
Thank you so much.